Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash Tales from Tech Support. In today's episode, so what the H*LL is a number 3. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. So what the H*LL is a number 3. Another suitably anonymized tale from my salad days at XYZ Limited. This one, however, doesn't involve open barrels of nuclear waste. Please feel free to read on or not as you see fit, depending on whether you think the absence of nuclear material is either a huge improvement or a terrible loss in narrative potential. XYZ Limited, not the outfit's real name, were a sort of one-stop shop for automation, power transmission, and control, and my job was to be technical specialist and sales manager for one of their ranges of stuff. So the tech I dealt with at XYZ Limited was amongst the more newfangled, electronic-y and complicated stuff they sold, and they also had a warehouse full of plain old motors, controllers, transformers, gearboxes, couplings, and in every size from palm of your hand to we gonna need a bigger truck. Goodson once lost a transformer that weighed over a ton less than 5 minutes after they'd booked it in, but that's another story. This stuff was used as ancillaries in more complicated jobs, but there were plenty of customers who just bought that kind of item, either ones and twos, or a couple of hundred a month. Clunklick Brothers were one such customer. They had a decent business building a particular kind of simple machine. They only did that, but they were good at it, and they did this one basic type in every size and specification. They also had a well-earned reputation for fast turnaround on specials, which were therefore also nice and profitable for them. Obviously, I'm not saying what kind of machine they made, so for the sake of argument let's pretend it's winches. Those ones you might fit on the front of your 4x4, so that they're perfectly positioned to punch straight through the radiator core if you happen to rear-end someone or get brake tested. And Clunklick's standard range has quarter, half, 3/4 and ton capacity winches, then every half-ton increment upwards until there's no demand anymore. They can do them to suit the peculiarities of your Jeep/Land Rover/Humvee/ whatever without breaking sweat. If your car has 24V electrics instead of 12V, they'll ring us up already knowing the different part numbers for what they want, but if you need it submersible and hydraulic powered, they'll be asking us some questions and double-checking before buying. If you want a 25-ton winch for your ex-Soviet 1930s tank recovery vehicle, they'll be asking you some penetrating questions, but if you give them the right data, and they'll deliver you something on Monday that fits perfectly. Clearly there are other options you might build in here: fixed/variable speed, extra brakes, carbon nanotube cable, etc., so there's a huge range of permutations possible even on semi-standard stuff. Almost everything Clunklick did was effectively built to order even if they already had the parts on the shelf. At this point I should probably emphasize that they didn't actually make winches, and the machinery they did make was very definitely an industrial, not a consumer product. I regret that I am presently unable to recommend a quality aftermarket winch supplier. Everyone in engineering at XYZ Limited was to some degree cross-trained, so aside from my nominal speciality, there were several other things where the call wound up routed to me if that specialist was out/on a call, and the order clerks couldn't handle it. So I probably walked someone from Clunklick through the calculations for special every couple of months. Wasn't even a loss leader from XYZ Limited's point of view. A few minutes of my time checking the details with someone who was already an expert in making not actually winches left plenty of markup in the deal to cover our costs. Anyway, one day, the range specialist from the stuff they generally bought, who also happened to be my line manager, has a meeting at Clunklick. Nothing very unusual in that, but apparently whatever it is was urgent enough that line manager is summoned to see them at short notice, entailing half a day's travel to and fro as well as the actual meeting, but without having enough warning to use the opportunity to also go and see anyone else in Clunklick's local area. I don't think much of it until they come back later in the day later looking more than mildly irritated. "What's up?" I asked line manager cheerily, while palming off on them anything that came in while they were out, and looks like I can justify it being on their to-do pile instead of mine. "Clunklick have hired a new purchasing manager. They just walked into the meeting and demanded 5% off all the current prices. And? No reason, no increase in sales volume, just a price reduction because the new purchasing manager promised to save 5%. Does purchasing manager know nobody else sells half the stuff they buy? They do now. So no change to Clunk Click Brothers' current discount schedule then? Nope. What was the rest about? Surely that can't have taken all morning. It did. And I got stuck in a jam coming back. Shut up, my head hurts. And don't call me Shirley. Life rolled on, and it was probably a good month before I had any interaction with Clunk Click Brothers. I get a call forwarded to me, order clerk can't work out what they want and line manager was out. Slacker. No problem, that's what I'm here for. So purchasing manager comes on the line. That's more unusual. If it needs technical input then normally I'd be speaking to someone in design or sales, but okay. Brief introductions ensue while I get their account up on screen. Purchasing manager then advises that from now on Clunk Click Brothers will only be using their own part numbers, since this is more efficient for them. No problem, I click through a couple of menu options. I should mention our stock control system here, which was ancient even when I started. It had started out life as some proprietary Unix database that had then been modified in-house time and again. Bar the odd glitch, it worked perfectly, with the minor issue that persuading the legacy wizards responsible for maintaining it to add, pronounced change, any feature that a mere decade's experience suggested might now be useful was one hell of an uphill challenge. Anyway, any given item that XZY Limited sold has three descriptors. A long-form text description of its technical characteristics, actually multiple database fields, which was generally only used in full for quotation purposes. B. A long alphanumeric product code that if, and only if, you spoke the relevant dialect of gibberish, could be decoded to tell you exactly which model of what it was and what options applied. Think washing machine and fridge model numbers. C. A part number, a pseudo-random 8-digit number that was unique and never reissued if the part was discontinued. At least in principle, similar items wouldn't have similar part numbers, so wrong digits could spot it easily. We could work from any of the three, but the most common was for the customer to ask for items using B, if they were technical, and C, if they weren't. But the database also allowed us to record customer part numbers either for individual items or kits of multiple things against their account. So I announce I'm in that display. There's a search function and a table of the most commonly ordered stuff. I've not looked at it for Clunk Click before, but they seem to be using their own dialect version of our product codes B, which makes sense. Good, says purchasing manager, I want 5 no 1s, 3 no 2s, and 1 number 3. Got that? Good. And they ring off. Unfortunately, the search function doesn't turn up 1, 2 or 3 as a part number previously used by Clunk Click Brothers. Or any other single digit. Or anything resembling that. So I note down a few regular purchases and ring back. Purchasing manager. How can I help you? Hi, this is Ojoy from XZY Limited, we were just on the phone. Have you forgotten already? Interrupts purchasing manager, 5 1s, 3 2s and a number 3. Write it down this time. I already did. Unfortunately, we've no record of you using those part numbers before, so I don't know what they are. Well, what part numbers are you using? I read few off screen, along with the first line of their text description. Those are the old part numbers, we're not using them anymore. Okay. Well, if you tell me what each of the new parts is, I'll put it in the system with this order, and we'll know for next time you want them. The whole point of this, explains purchasing manager, is to save time. What's the point if I have to tell you what a part number means? Because at the moment, only you know. What's number 1? The not really a winch motor. I need 5. Which motor? You've had 47 different types of motor in the last 6 months. The 5 we need next and don't have here, obviously. I'm not sure why purchasing manager thinks I know what Clunk Click have in stock. So I still don't know which motor you need 5 of. I don't want 5 the same, I want 5 number ones. I really don't understand at this point. Order clerk has got back to their desk by now, and is gesticulating in a mildly obscene manner. I can understand very clearly what order clerk thinks, but unfortunately that's not proving to be immediately helpful. Sorry, I don't understand. I say, you want 5 number ones, but they aren't all the same motor? Yes. Finally. Part number 1 is the winch motor. All winch motors are part number 1 and 1 only means a winch motor. Part number 2 is gearbox if there is one. Part number 3 is the spline shaft adapter, if there is one. I don't think I could explain any better than that. I am still, to this day, of the opinion that it is indeed completely impossible to explain the concept of improving efficiency by using same part number for everything you want, any better than that. So let me make sure I have this right. You want 5 different motors, all of which now have the part number 1. And 3 gearboxes, are those all the same, or different? And looking at your history, I don't think you've ever bought a spline shaft adapter. In fact, I'm not sure we even sell them. We used to get them from other supplier, but we only ever use them on some winches, and those have your motor on them, so I decided it would just be easier to get them from you at the same time as everything else. But we don't sell spline shaft adapters. And if you bought them from other supplier, we've got no way of working out what they were. You do sell them, I've just given you an order for one. Now are we going to get this stuff tomorrow or not? On the other side of the room, order clerk is now experiencing considerable personal joy at my expense. The treacherous git has also obviously shared the story so far with department manager, my boss's boss. Department manager loves practical jokes, probably invented the concept of schadenfreude, and is also grinning like a loon. No, I say faintly, I can't enter your order because I don't know what you want to buy, except that there are 5 different motors with the same part number, and 3 gearboxes that have a different number. And a spline shaft adapter. Why is this so hard for you people? Because. Never mind. Who's your manager? My manager is line manager, they're also your account manager. Out of the corner of my eye I see that on hearing the word manager, department manager has decided to pop out of the fire exit for quick smoke break. Normally they leave the fire exit ajar to save having to walk round the building to get back in, but this time it seems to have mysteriously slammed shut behind them. Line manager is probably the best person to speak to, they're out all day today, but I know they'll be in tomorrow. I shall expect a call from them tomorrow morning and urgent delivery to compensate for the time lost today. I've made notes on everything we've said, and I'll give them to line manager first thing tomorrow. This is mostly their specialist area anyway. 5 1s, 3 2s and just 1 3. Yes, I've made special note of that. So I added a bit to the notes and dumped it on line manager's desk with sheet on top that said you need to ring Clunk Click Brothers ASAP. Line manager was a keen sort, and had probably been at their desk half an hour before I saw them next morning. We exchange pleasantries before line manager holds up my scrawled pages from yesterday. You had problems yesterday with an order from Clunk Click? Yup. Your insert qualifications here, and you were defeated by an order for 5 motors and 3 gearboxes. Yup. I've read your notes, but it's probably easier if you tell me before I ring them. Order clerk forwarded the call to me. Purchasing manager has changed all Clunk Click's part numbers. All motors are now number 1, all gearboxes are number 2. Which motor? Whichever they need today. Apparently that orders for 5 different ones. And all gearboxes are now part number 2. Yup. So what the H*LL is a number 3. Spline shaft adapter they get from other suppliers limited. We don't sell anything like those. I know, I mentioned that to purchasing manager, but they weren't happy with that and wanted to speak to you. You promised I'd ring back today. Yup. This morning, apparently it's urgent. Also, you are their account manager. Line manager picks up the phone and then put it down again mid-dial. Department manager was here yesterday, why didn't you put purchasing manager onto them? They ran away. Really? Ask order clerk. Line manager mutters something like coward under their breath and rings Clunk Click Brothers. Over the next few minutes I get to hear line manager's half of the conversation. It sounds remarkably like what I went through yesterday. Line manager puts the phone down again. It's true. Yup. All motors are part 1, all gearboxes are part 2. Apparently all cables are part 5, did purchasing manager mention that yesterday? No, I think that's new. It's true and I still can't believe it. Good thing we don't supply cables, must be an absolute nightmare for them. I'd better ring old brother Clunk, find out what they actually want. Later that day line manager did indeed ring old brother Clunk, technical head honcho at Clunk Click Brothers, valid part numbers were exchanged and lo. The order was placed and with due process, fulfilled. Interlude. A couple of months later line manager is back in the office, after a couple of days out in the field visiting customers. So they're dispensing the various inquiries and tender documents they've acquired to whoever does what while they and the rest of the section are catching up on what's gone on in each other's worlds while they were away. Oh, adds line manager, I stopped in at Clunk Click Brothers on the way past. You all probably ought to know that purchasing manager has left. The colleague next to me says that's a pity, and someone else sprays their monitor with coffee. Now their screen is lime green and brown. Yeah. And they've already gone back to using their old part numbers. What, says I innocently, the ones where there was just one meaning for each part number? Yes. And purchasing manager is being replaced by buyer, who starts next month and won't have authority to make engineering decisions. Did purchasing manager have authority to make engineering decisions? Shut up, says line manager, and buries their head in their hands. Here in death the lesson.